If you've done the expedition or are working towards it, you might know that it wipes all of your progress in Arc Raiders for the prestige of this teeny weeny icon in the lobby, alongside some progression buffs and cosmetics. But you might also be thinking, okay, everything gets wiped, now what? Where do you go from here? There's 1,000 different things to progress, and without having some sort of focus, you could easily achieve none of them. So where should you start, and what should your priorities be? First of all, I'm not going to be telling you what you should be doing. I'm not your mother. If you want a 12-page spreadsheet documenting every single micro step you need to take so that you can scientifically progress as quick as humanly possible, this ain't the one, Chief. But as a certified loot goblin that doesn't shy away from a gunfight when needed, I'll cover 4 guiding areas that I'll have in the back of my mind at the start of a fresh expedition to help me get back up and running. Because as fun as the wipe is, we don't want to be taking on the final boss of Arc Raiders with that level 1 rattler now, do we? So coming up, we have the early game direction for my skill tree to reduce the feeling of being stuck in treacle. I'll cover a couple of things I do even before my first raid that help with my looting potential that everyone can get access to, but maybe you're not thinking about. I'll explain where I'll take my first raids back in the game and why, and I'll finally explain when you're back in Speranza what to do with all that juicy loot to make it work best for you. And following on from this, you should be equipped with a great foundation to just go out there and enjoy the next expedition. Let's get into it. So our first section is going to be the skill tree. Heading over here, there's one thing that, above all else, I can't recommend this highly enough. In-round crafting. If you were to pick one skill out of the whole of this tree, in-round crafting is my top pick. And the reason I'd go for that is because it just opens up so much to you. When you start out, you've got a small stash space, you can have small augments, and how much you can take in and out of raid is going to be a big limiting factor. What in-round crafting does is allows you to take less of your resources from your stash into a raid. It allows you to keep going in raid, and then allows you to extract more useful stuff out of a raid. You can take in like 2 shield recharges and 2 bandages, and then once you're in there and you're coming across all these raw materials and stuff that you can scrap, you can just top up in raid. And then if you've got like a really long raid, it's epic, it's going on ages, but you're coming into loads of battles with other raiders, or you're getting harassed by Ark the whole time, there's no limit to how long you can stay in raid because you're constantly able to produce those bandages, shield recharges. And while I've said previously the most important thing about Arc Raiders is just enjoying yourself, the enjoyable part is spending the time in the game. So part of it is you're not having to run in and out of raid all the time. You can spend longer in raid actually enjoying the game. So in-round crafting, my absolute top pick in terms of first priorities on a skill tree. After that, it doesn't matter how you play, but I would strongly recommend the movement mobility tree, at least up to this first nodule here, this 15-point nodule. If you didn't realise, once you get your 15 points in, you get to unlock these larger circles here. It's supposed to be a bit of a more major buff, but really what we're looking forward to is stick a point in here, and then I'd work my points through these 2 here for Youthful Lungs and Marathon Runner to give myself more stamina. Doesn't matter if you're a PvP player, a PvE player, however you play, having more stamina is of benefit, because the worst thing you can do is you're either in a battle or you're just running around to your loot spot and you keep having to use stims or just wait on your stamina to recharge. So more stamina, the better. Get these up, that's top priority. After that, and we've got our in-round crafting, I personally then would be turning towards the survival tree. This one here, Looter's Instincts, is because I'm looking to get the loot revealed quicker. The less time I have to spend there standing in raid, waiting for the boxes to populate as I open something up, the better. And ultimately, for me, as a primarily a looter with a bit of PvP chucked in, this is all going to be really useful, because later on we're going to want to get this broad shoulders for carrying more weight, and the more stuff you can carry, the less you're going to have to faff around with your inventory and keep returning to base. Again, it's that thing of like how long you can spend in raid and how much you can carry per run, rather than having to come in and out, in and out, in and out, shake it all about, all that kind of stuff. What we'll see is proficient prior. This is a good one for me. Breaching doors and containers take less time. Again, the reason I would prioritize Looter's Instincts is because you think about the number of things you're opening and looting. It's how often you get the benefit from this. It's like hundreds of times per raid, isn't it? The Breacher, it's not as often, not everything's breachable, but over the course of your expedition, you will use this thousands, tens of thousands of times. You will still breach. So this is a good one. I've not chosen it straight off the bat this time. Ultimately, it's up to you. What do you prioritize? But this is the way I'm going now. Priority 1, bit of movement. Priority 2, a bit of speed in how I loot. And then priority 3, it's being able to carry more stuff. The skill tree is very, very personal to your playstyle. I'm not going to go any more deep into it than that. This is literally just where I would spend my first points. And so on to what we do before a raid, before we've even got going. And the first thing I recommend to everybody for your very first raid is we go over to Lance. You should have a little bit of money, and if you've not, then you should have a little bit of loot in there for free. Just sell some of your gear if you need to, and buy a looting Mark II. You get one of these every 24 hours from Lance for 6,000 coins. And if you look at the details of the augment here, it gives you 2 stash spots. It gives you 60 max loadout weight. For me, unless you're going incredibly PvP heavy, this should be your absolute bread and butter. I know you can use a free loadout. I know that's an option available to you, but just trust me on this one, and you'll later be able to craft it at your own workbench. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And then if it's not your first expedition, we can also go to Shani. And if you've used the one at Lance, then you can potentially use up to 200 of your cred currency every day to get another 2 from Shani. These cred, you use them for the raider deck. Ultimately, you want to craft them first, but before you can do that, go to Lance. And if you can't go to Lance, then consider using these. Particularly the 6 grand one from Lance, you will make that back inside of a raid. Promise. All your money back. No promises. And then while we're over here on the raider page, the last thing to consider before we go into any raids is just ensuring that you've accepted all your quests. It's not my main priority when I'm first going into my first raids, but they give you good rewards. So just have them there, and then it's an option. We'll talk about that more momentarily. So in terms of what to do for our very first raids and where to go, I would suggest just think about targeting materials for Scrappy. I'll put a list of all the materials for Scrappy in a pinned comment. It's nothing too crazy. Personally, my very first raids, I'm going to be going to Blue Gate, I'm going to be going to Spaceport, unless Stellamontis Night Raid is available. If Stellamontis Night Raid is available, it's just the loot is too good, it's too easy to just bag a load of really good, valuable loot for quick turnover and getting that head start going with your account. In terms of what to do in raid, loot everything. The basic advice is loot absolutely everything. Don't be picky about it. Don't be snobby. Even if something's opened already, loot absolutely everything. We've got a couple of reasons for that. One is that another man's trash is another man's treasure, and when you're on a fresh expedition, people are quite commonly going to leave like basic items, basic materials, and even if it's a basic item, you can scrap it into basic materials, which are always useful. And then also endgame players, trinkets stop being useful. So if you're an endgame player but you've not done the expedition yet, money is of no value. So you'll quite often find endgame players leaving trinkets around. So they're the 2 most common things you're going to find. And then the second benefit to looting containers that have already been looted, even if it's completely empty, you still get XP. And even more so, to be honest, if it's completely empty, you don't have to wait for the time for the boxes to start populating. And it's just a quick, easy XP farm. Roshdi. We mentioned making sure quests are accepted. Personally, I don't focus on the quests. My priority is getting those materials together for Scrappy and getting Scrappy upgraded. But the quests do offer like some great rewards, which are either going to be genuinely useful to you, or you can sell them, or you can scrap for the base materials, which are going to be useful to you. If you're on a map and you've got a quest active for that map, and it doesn't involve going all the way across the map specifically for that one thing, then I will do it. I will always do it, and I'll just start making a progress through the quests. And then my last consideration for when I'm in raid, that is going to be having a short list of awkward items. So I mentioned I'm not tracking a 12-page spreadsheet of items of everything I need for all the projects, all the expedition, blah, 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 blah. Boring! But what I am doing, more mentally rather than anything, is from experience of doing the first couple of expeditions, is I know what the awkward items are to collect. And while it's fun going and exploring, what I don't want is it to become grindy and repetitive. So when you get down to looking for things like mushrooms, prickly pears, it can get a little bit grindy if you're not sort of doing them slow time, a long time, the more general raiding and having a bit of fun. don't get rid of apricots, mushrooms, prickly pears, rusted gears, or motors. And by the time you come to need them, you'll then have at least several of them, if not all of them. But particularly apricots, mushrooms, prickly pears. Just for the love of God, do not eat them or sell them or scrap them for seed. Mushrooms are the bane of my life in this game. I hate them. Which is weird because I love them in real life. But anyway, what I will say is I'm not going to do a full guide on where to get everything. There's plenty of videos and things out there. Lemons are really common, and olives, both of those, get them at the olive grove over on Bluegate. Dead easy, commonly available. The more tricky ones are going to be the mushrooms and the apricots. There's a trench over at the north side on Spaceport is a really good farm spot. There's a tree down there which is a guaranteed mushroom spawn. Unfortunately, everybody knows about that now, and because you can do a naked run, whoever spawns nearest to it will just run to the tree, stick it in a safe pocket, and then just eject out of the game. I've been trying to grind these things. It's like there's been some sort of massacre with just bodies strewn everywhere. But if you're on Spaceport, it's not a wasted trip. Often you'll find the apricot trees down in that trench are still bearing fruit, both metaphorically and actually practically. Once you've got the trees, once you've got your apricots, because you will need, I think it's 12 or even 15 of those, head over to the opening of the tunnel. So further south, in front of the massive towers, there's a bit of the tunnel has collapsed. And if you go into there, there's a pipe in there. And I don't think it's every time, but fairly commonly, you will find mushrooms spawn down there. And because it's not as well known, I found way more joy getting there than I did the tree at the back. That's my top tip. That's where I got my mushrooms from. And then finally, there's one last place. But again, it's luck of the draw about whether you get there. And this is quite well known now. But if you go to the sort of the kitchen area on Stella Montis, from the atrium area, you go there. You get into that room. There's a couple of fruit baskets. Then you get lots of access to a random selection of fruits, which are all going to be valuable for Scrappy. It's just a case of whether you can get there first. What do you do after the raid? You've got this, all your proud, hard-earned loot that you've come back with. What do you do with it? First off, get rid of any trinkets. Unless it's on a list of things for Scrappy, like the cat bed or the collar, is it? Dog collar? Then you're just going to sell it. Sell your trinkets. And the reason you want to do that is for the most important thing, and that's upgrading your stash. Get your stash upgraded. The larger your stash base, then the less likely you are being forced into selling something when you don't want to. Okay? The more you can keep in your stash, then the less you're going to have to rely on buying things from the traders, which they make their tidy profit off. You get far more value by just taking the stuff for yourself. What we don't want to do is have to sell something and then go and re-raid it later on, even if it's basic materials. Just having common stuff in just allows you to keep a couple of stacks, and then you're never at a place where you're empty. Things like steel springs, duct tape, all really useful for attachments. Mechanical components in your alloy and your metal parts, all really good for upgrading your guns and your attachments, stuff that you're going to use really regularly. You feel like it's easy to get hold of them right up until the moment you've not got any, and then you're going back into the game with no gun or a free loadout because you can't craft an augment or you can't craft anything other than a basic gun. So have your stash upgraded. Also, it's going to give you that space for those rusted gears and other kind of random things that you don't need immediately, but you are going to need further down the line. Once you've got your trinkets sold and you're keeping your stash upgraded as much as you possibly can, mine's maxed out, you're then going to be putting your attention into Scrappy, as mentioned, and your workbenches. Scrappy's really good because it's just a constant, steady stream of free base materials, and base materials, particularly early game, are just so useful for absolutely everything you do in the game. But after that, workbenches, and we're just going to talk a little bit about workbenches. I'm not going to go into it too much, but the main thing you need to know from workbenches is just don't be worrying about it. You don't need to go crazy with it. You don't even need to upgrade all your workbenches. It's one of those things it's a fun completionist thing to do in the game, but even at the very end game, I swear there's some elements of the workbenches I just don't even use personally, and that's just my playstyle. Maybe you'll use level 3 of everything for the way you play, but I think you could get away with not even leveling up some of them. So in terms of what's most important, for me, I always go for the gear bench. A gear bench, get that leveled up to level 2. The sooner you can get your own looting Mark II augment crafted, then you can be self-reliant and not have to worry about the traders. Beyond that, nothing's immediately important. But I would say your next priority, or at least my next priority, is going to be the gunsmith level 2, because then that's going to allow me to craft green attachments. Until you've got the blueprints, it's not like dead important, but that's probably going to be the next thing I'll be working on. Certainly for early game, I'd say the med lab level 1 is more than adequate, because it has normal and herbal bandages and stims, and at the very start you're not wanting to be crafting anything more than that. Like if I'm finding blue heals and things in raid and blue shield recharges, I'm selling them or recycling them because they're more useful for the money for upgrading my stash. And because they're a total luxury, they're like mid to end game for materials for me. So once I've got everything upgraded and I'm able to produce stuff, I can start hoarding those materials and being a bit more free with using the posh heals. Refiner to level 2, that's a good one, because right at the very start, what we're really interested in is like mechanical components and maybe some durable fabric for like the herbal bandages, or upgrading some of our workstations. But refiner becomes a really useful one because it gives you some of that freedom for turning basic materials or scrapping more complex things into basic materials and then refining them. Again, the more you can give yourself the freedom to turn all your materials into whatever you need rather than relying on the raiders and relying on looting, the better. And then the 2 that I'm personally just not so bothered with is utility station, upgrading that to level 2 because it'll allow you to craft a raider hatch key. Personally, I don't use them that much. And then finally, the explosive station is a low priority one for me because I don't use explosives too much. With some of the new art machines like the Comet and the Firefly coming in, I'm going to be using secret grenades way more this expedition. But until I get a blueprint for it, I can't craft it regardless of what my explosive station is. So I'm not going to be doing loads of crafting. And folks, that is pretty much it. Like I say, I'll put a list of all the ingredients for Scrappy into a pinned comment. If you want to see me doing some questing and get myself into a bit of trouble, whether that be with Ark or with fellow raiders, then I'll hope to see you back here at the channel soon.